I'm Leon Charney, and this is the Leon Charney Report. And you will notice by the picture that I'm not in the studio. I'm on vacation, and I thought it was very important that we do speak this weekend. First of all, we're going to show you our in-depth rerun of the in-depth interview we did with Shimon Pres because we think it's absolutely important. Number two, I think it's important that we try to digest what happened this week with the signing of an agreement to redeploy Israeli troops from Hebron. What will it mean to Israel? Let's try and hit some major points. First of all, it's a new era for Israel. It's the peace. Basically, it means the beginning of a Palestinian state, no matter what anyone says. Number two, it shows that the new law in Israel, where the prime minister was elected directly, gave him a lot of power. This is Mr. Netanyahu. And that he was able to ram this agreement through the Knesset with a vote of 87 to something like 17, or it's a tremendous victory. So in a sense, he had a unity government without making a unity government, and the people of Israel voted for this thing. Clinton is a big winner. Evidently put a lot of pressure on Bibi Netanyahu and Yasser Arafat to sign this thing before the inauguration and before the Filegate, Wandergate, Paulagate, all the gates start hitting him, and it's certainly going to help him in terms of his leadership. I don't think it wins elections. I remember when we did Camp David, Jimmy Carter never won an election because he did Camp David. In any case, it makes him feel good, and he thinks he's on his way to making a comprehensive peace in the Middle East. Another thing that transpired is that Shimon Pres became a winner. He lost politically, but he really is the winner, and he showed that peace is greater than any hardline political objective of either party. Incidentally, Peres was not in the Knesset for the vote. He's in the United States, and basically last night Barak addressed the Knesset. Ehud Barak, who probably is the new leader of the Labor Party, and Shimon Peres will evidently retire in a very elegant way. A nice way to go out because he did see a fulfillment of Hebron. The difference between the Hebron agreement and the PLO agreement and Camp David is the manifest. Number one, Camp David was with another country. This one is with a bunch of Palestinians who have sort of an autonomy or some kind of leadership through Arafat. And don't take Arafat with a slight hand. He's been very wily in this whole thing. But what it shows is that an Israeli will have to live with an Arab inside his backyard, so to speak. It's a commingled relationship, whereas you had boundaries on Camp David, you don't have boundaries here. No one knows how it will work out. The prayer and hope is that it will do very well. I spoke with the president of Israel this morning, Ezer Weitzman, who was very upbeat about the situation, told me that he thought that it will improve Israel's stature again economically. It will show they're on the right track, and that there is strong leadership in the country. For Bibi Netanyahu, it's a big problem because, in a sense, he promised those people who voted for him not to do exactly what he did. Now, we know politicians are not necessarily the most honest people in the world. On the other hand, if I were a resident of California and Clinton promised me that California would not be ceded back to Russia, or Alaska would not be ceded back to Russia, and I voted for Mr. Clinton on that basis, and then, in the sense I was double-crossed, I'd feel very aggrieved. But the reality is the settlers are only about 150,000 to 200,000 people. There is a majority in Israel that is proceeding to want to go towards peace, and I think Bibi read the polls and said this is the way he's going. Was it a profile in courage? We don't know yet, but certainly it's a change in what is going to happen in the Middle East. And it's certainly a progenitor of a Palestinian state. What's interesting to note is that I don't believe that Yitzhak Rabin would have signed a letter agreement allowing the United States to guarantee to Yasser Arafat that the redeployment will take place in 1998 on the entire West Bank. I think that will be a troublesome letter. I think Benny Begin, who resigned from the cabinet yesterday, brought that fact up, and he wanted that letter shown at the Knesset debate. I don't know if it was or not. In any case, these things are never ground into steel, so to speak, so no one knows how that will work out. But it was a big gesture on the part of Bibi Netanyahu. In a sense, he gave up a little bit of the sovereign integrity of the State of Israel. But it's not easy to make peace, and it's better to have some kind of peace than people being killed every day. In any case, listen to Shimon Pres. This was taped about 3 months ago, and I think I think it's up to date. It may have been 3 months ago, but I think you'll enjoy listening to what he says and how he feels about the whole peace process. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Leon Charney, and this is the Leon Charney Report, and we're talking today to Shimon Pres, Nobel laureate, probably one of the most outstanding political personalities in the world today, very well known, former Prime Minister of Israel, and we will discuss part of his life and part of the future of Israel today. Shimon, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you on. It's been a long time.
Thank you.
By the way, before I start, I read your book, Battling for Peace.
Yes.
I thought it was fantastic. It made me cry. It was very human. And your Jewish background in Russia and Poland, a lot of people don't know that about you. They don't understand. You have what we call in French neshama. It's called soul.
Yes. You know, they say about the Jewish father who has had a vineyard, and before he passed away, he told his children, says, you know, you can make wine not only from water, but also from grapes. So I have some Jewish grapes in my wine.
But you're very traditional. Your background is tremendously traditional.
Yes, yes, yes.
And your grandfathers were rabbis and chazonim and cantors and...
Yes, right.
So why is the public so unaware of that?
I don't know what is the public. Half of the public voted for me. It's not little. In a country that is so conservative, I have such a strong religious group. And I believe I can say about myself, I'm trying to introduce a change. People don't like changes. And learn between the two of me. If you'll ask me what should the leader be, I would tell him, be controversial, don't be popular. What is popular? To agree with everything that exists, to agree with anybody you meet. What is controversial? When you want to change. It is not that people don't know me. They don't like some of what I'm trying to do. I can understand it.
We were in the Knesset yesterday.
Yes.
I sense that this country is in despair. People really don't know which way to turn.
Yes.
We interviewed people from Likud, some from Labor. Everybody's in shock about the first 100 days of Bibi Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really know what to make of it. The feeling is that he's put some strain into relationships with Jordan, that he's put some strain into Camp David with Mubarak, that he's put some strain into, obviously, some relationships with Arafat. They look at you as the wise man, as the statesman. And I'm talking about the political people. Maybe the population didn't know enough about it, or maybe they did.
The population is better.
It's better?
Yes, with the population I have a much better standing. You know, I got thousands and thousands of letters. I didn't get a single negative letter. Letters of support, of love. I have more troubles on the top.
Is that right?
Than among the people.
Where do you see the country going now?
Look, the Likud promised 3 or 4 things which are impossible. They said, why should you pay for peace? We shall give you peace without a price. Free lunch, free peace. It's not honest. I'm telling the people, and I'm telling you, peace has a price. Peace process is not a book of poetry. It's a book of blood, of struggles, of disappointments. And you know, the Likud came in and says, have it free. Then they says, why should we have peace with terror? Let's have security first, peace after. It is again not serious. Only peace may bring security. But if we will wait for having a total security, you'll never have peace. Then they came in and says, Mr. Peres was in a hurry. He was galloping, you know, he didn't do it. Again, it's total nonsense. Because if you come to horses and you see all those galloping horses, and you say, my God, I can't stand their pace. I would like to become, say, a turtle. That's fine, you can become a turtle. But the horses will not become turtles. the horses of war, the horses of fundamentalism, the horses of missiles. And you're a fool if you think that the armor of the turtle on your back will be a compensation for the speed of the different horses. And I'm telling you, in 3 or 4 years, we shall face a terrible situation. Fundamentalism will be spread. They may win over some of the oil wells. They may have a nuclear option. They will have missiles. And then what? With all due respect to a rabbi who reached the age of 100 years, what does he know about nuclear weapons? What does he know about missiles? What does he know about the dangers that are facing us? And I want to tell you again, straightforward, there are many wise Jews. The Jewish people is not a wise people. We didn't understand what Hitler was. We didn't understand what Stalin was. We didn't understand in our first temple and second temple the enemies we face, the need for unity inside. And I don't want to depend automatically on what is called the wisdom of our people. Everything is written on the wall. And I'm not afraid to say so, and nobody will frighten me. Then they said, with the Palestinians, what Mr. Netanyahu calls a generous autonomy. What does it mean, a generous autonomy? Generous to whom? The Palestinians will never take autonomy as a generous proposal instead of more than autonomy. We think that autonomy is a station on the road for a permanent solution. They think that autonomy is the permanent solution, generous autonomy. All those were 4 mistakes. That's one of the reasons why we lost the elections. We say for peace, the Likud says for peace. But whereas we said peace has a price, for example, you have to withdraw from a part of the Golan Heights or more than part of it. They says, no, keep the Golan Heights. You see? And that is why we paid foolishly. Now, the last 4 years, the government founded by Yitzhak Rabin, and all the credit must be given to him, were the best 4 years in the 4,000 years of the Jewish history. Never were the Jewish people or the Jewish state as respected, as taken seriously. Never did we have a better economic situation. Never did we have a more political wisdom or strategic facility than we have today. And now, what are we doing? Nobody knows where to go.
People are despaired, I can tell you.
Yes, but look, I can only tell the truth. I'm not looking for popular votes. Maybe I lost the elections. I didn't lose my conscience. Maybe I am short of 1/30%, but I'm not short of seeing the situation, as I believe at least, is, and I don't have the slightest hesitation to tell what I think and what I feel.
Do you have any problem with a Palestinian state?
Look, I have a problem with autonomy for the Palestinians because I think it's unreasonable. I shall give you, again, very honestly, a simple example. We have the overriding responsibility, security responsibility over Gaza. Now a person from our intelligence service comes to me and says, look, I have a piece of information. The 3 infiltrators are trying to penetrate Israel. Put a closure on Gaza. What is my choice? I have to put a closure. But I put a closure of 1 million people. I affect their economy. Maybe I push them to support hostile forces. I think it's not right. I would prefer, as I have said, a Jordanian-Palestinian confederation. Now, my full views I shall never publish ahead of time. I've learned from experience that everything that becomes known is dead. When you and me are sitting together and negotiate, you have your proposals, I have mine. No chance that you will take my proposals, I shall take your proposals. The art of negotiations is to create new proposals. And if you publish them ahead of time, you kill them. So what I have in my heart, I have in my heart.
Interesting story. Ezer Weitzman dispatched me about 8 years ago to see Mr. Arafat in Tunis on a secret mission. He couldn't go. He was an Israeli. Mr. Shamir booted him out of the government, basically, and you people saved him halfway. I saw 3 people when I returned. I saw Yitzhak Rabin, who didn't want to hear about anything with Arafat. He told me that he's a terrorist and he represents no one, and I don't want to deal with it. I saw you. You told me to keep speaking. Keep going. Keep speaking. Our friend Chaim Bar-Lev told me the same thing. Let's keep talking. And Ezer, obviously, he was in Geneva. He said to me, I just want one read from you. One read. That's why I sent you. Can we do business with him? I said yes. That was 8 years ago. Tell me how you move this peace process, and especially Yitzhak Rabin. You remember that story, by the way?
Yes, I do. The problem is not if Arafat was ready or not, but if our people were ready too. We need a majority. Arafat was demonized in our country. And we have had real difficulty. Again, there's no sense to tell stories. We have to face the situation as it really is or was now. When we formed the government, Yitzhak told me I want to conduct the negotiations with Palestinians. And he said publicly that he hopes that in 6 to 9 months we shall find a solution. He was referring to the negotiations that took place in Washington. In our private talks, I told him, Yitzhak, there is no chance that anything will come out of those negotiations. We have to do it differently. And so he didn't believe in what I was suggesting. He said, okay, try your hands. What happened is that the negotiations in Washington failed and the negotiations in Oslo succeeded. Yitzhak was honest enough to say that he didn't tell any of his friends about the negotiations in Oslo because he didn't believe that something will come out of it. Now, what I did and what he did, and again, I don't want to belittle his decisions. We have developed a relationship that saved us. We are sitting just the two of us. No note takers, no witnesses. Nothing leaked. A word didn't leak. We spoke totally open. We didn't fight for credit. And then when he saw that the only thing that can happen is really the Oslo story, rightly, he took it.
And you developed a very close working relationship with him.
Yes. Look, the difference were different. There were difficulties from the past. There were suspicions, competitions. You know, every person who lives with himself is all day winning every possible subject. When you have two persons, you're in troubles. That's normal. I don't complain.
When you sit in this chair and you think, and your hero is David Ben-Gurion, no question, what do you think he'd be thinking now?
I think he would tell me you did right. He would tell me never sacrifice your position for popularity. If you put on a good fight, if you were honest, if you told the truth, if you fought courageously, this is what counts. And he used to say, I don't know what the people want. I know what the people need. And the leader is not the one who tries to see what the people want, but try to answer what the people need.
You go around the world, everybody knows you're exceptional. You're a great political leader today. Everybody expects some brilliant answers from you. I can tell that from the American side. I talk with the Americans. Everyone respects you. What is the prestige of Israel today? What do you travel a lot.
Israel had a tremendous amount of goodwill. I think by sheer rhetorics, we lost a great deal of it. There was no need to come before the Congress and say we give up foreign aid when you don't give up foreign
That's interesting, because I was at both conventions, and I interviewed Senators Orrin Hatch, John Kasich, the budget chairman, and I said, John, what do you think about the Prime Minister's talk at the Congress here about giving back some money on the budget? He said, off the camera, on the camera. I said, well, give it to me both. Off the camera, I thought it was silly, because you're not ready to do it.
No, if you do it, do it. Then to say about mutuality. Again, look, what is mutuality? You says, I won't give you anything, you'll give me everything. Mr. Netanyahu quotes Begin. Begin gave back the whole land to Egypt. Begin was the first politician on the right side of the Israeli political side that he says land for peace. Doesn't matter if he said it in words or in deeds.
But you supported him, I remember that.
I did support it because without us he wouldn't have a majority. Right. And in our party there was a division. And I stood up and says, gentlemen, we didn't negotiate the agreement. We don't like parts of it. But that's not the problem. Are we going to have peace or not? If yes, let's support it. This is the only chance. I had a very strong debate with Yigal Allon. He thought that we shouldn't agree to the dismantling of the settlements in Sinai. I told him that's not a problem. If you will vote against it, it's like voting against peace. We must be serious.
I remember that time. I was with Jimmy Carter. I was working with him. I came to see
By the way, so Jimmy now, I must tell you, he made a very moving speech at, there was a meeting in San Diego of sort of a world forum, which they called Inside. And Carter spoke there, Gorbachev spoke there, I spoke there. He made a very moving, very humane speech, you know. The man is full of enthusiasm. And the man is really with a human commitment. I told him in Oslo, says, Mr. President, you are talking all the time about human rights. You have violated human rights. He asked when and where. So look what you did. You collected the leaders of Israel. You collected the leaders of Egypt. You put them in a concentration camp. You wouldn't let them out. They couldn't say a word to the prisoner, to the journalists. You made them prisoners. And only because they violated the human rights, the matter succeeded.
That's a great tribute to Carter.
Yes. No, I think he did a wonderful job now.
I was once dispatched. I'll tell you a story. It's quite interesting. I was dispatched to see Prime Minister Begin because he was having a tough time with Carter, and I was asked to go bring him Hanukkah greetings, and you know I was doing backdoor work at that time. I see Begin, and Begin says to me that the Secretary of Vance is the worst anti-Semite he's ever met. Bring the clock back forward 4 months in March. Begin gets up in Camp David.
Called him the messenger of light in Hanukkah, I remember it.
I write a note.
The messenger of light, yes.
I write a note to my friend Asa Weitzman. I said, "This is why people are skeptical of political speeches." And
don't generalize. There are now, please.
Let me run through a few political people with you. Henry Kissinger. What do you think of this man?
I think he's a great man.
Gerald Ford.
A nice man.
Ronald Reagan.
An extremely agreeable person.
Bill Clinton.
Charming and friendly.
I must tell you that we filmed Clinton with you in the Opera House when he came here on a second visit.
Yes.
I've never seen, I was with the White House press at that time, I've never seen the press so taken by the sincerity of Clinton, how well loved and well received he was in this country.
The man is sophisticated, the man is warm, the man means well, the man grew with his job, and I have tremendous respect for him.
Mitterrand.
Mitterrand is a French product. It's another story, another culture, another civilization. France is a very complicated country. There are rules and regulations. Number one, a French politician is forbidden to be boring. The Frenchman will never forgive a leader.
Is that right?
Oh, sure. Frenchman is ready to take any weakness but boredom. They think boredom is the worst that can happen to a person when he's alive. Clearly, Mitterrand was not a boring person. Secondly, a French leader must be great on words and literature. He must have a good tongue and a good pen. In France, even you have speechwriters. They know exactly. They expect him to be on a very high intellectual level. He had it. Number 3, in French, you may be forgiven a lot of things. I don't want to make the whole list. But the difference, between France and America is, in America you can make a friend in 5 minutes. But to maintain a friendship is very complicated in America. In France, it may take you a year to make a friend, but then it's forever. And he kept his friendship toward me. I want to tell you a story, a moving story. Really, I didn't tell it to anybody. He invited me for lunch at the Elysee on a given day, on a Tuesday morning. And I came for lunch, and he was really fatherly. He embraced me, took me around, we talked. I didn't know what happened. Then his doctor told me that a couple of days before it, they discovered that he has the cancer.
Prostate cancer.
And they asked to operate him immediately, and he says, no, I have lunch with Mr. Pérez. And only after then I shall go to the hospital.
Really?
Would you know any person that would postpone an operation for 2 days?
No.
President of Egypt, of France. So, you see, there are hidden qualities. Then the man among the French presidents was the most informed about Jewish life. I asked him once, I says, François, why are you traveling so much? Oh, he says, probably there is a drop of Jewish blood in my veins. I'm a wanderer. Fascinating. And yet he wasn't a simple person. Very far from. A man of great sophistications and of different tastes. But he has also something which a French president needs. He was a great builder. The library he built, the bibliothèque is fascinating. The new opera house, the Défense, the pyramids in the Louvre. Something.
Talk about Jewish blood. I spent a lot of time with a fellow named Bruno Kreisky. Your friend from the Socialist International.
Yes. No. Again, it's a fascinating story. The man clearly was intellectually
He was bored, though, I think, in Austria. He had no inflation.
Yes, that's a different story. He thought Austria is too small for him. But once upon a time, I want to tell you something again, an anecdote. He arranged a meeting between Sadat and myself in Vienna. I was the opposition, I wasn't in the government. But he decided to give the same honors to me as to Sadat. So Sadat had, 20 or 30 motorcycles. I got the same. Planes, everything. But I was in the opposition. So when I came to the airport, I didn't have a car. So the head of the protocol says, Mr. Perez, where is your car? I said, I don't have any. So he says, what are we going to do? I says, I'll take a taxi. He says, are you crazy? We shall go with motorcycles. And the taxi was very much embarrassed. He called up Bruno. And Bruno says, no problem, he will have my car. I sent me over his car. The whole time I went in his car. And believe me, he treated me like a father. He looked where I'm having breakfast. He came for lunch. He took me, really. So when one of the things went down to the vineyards, they have the early grape wine, I don't know how you call it. And he was an expert, so he took me at a very nice place where they drink. He said, Bruno, why do you attack me all the time? Why do you attack Israel all the time? And then he gave me a very interesting answer. He says, look, if I shall not attack you, how can I help you?
It's very true, because I'll tell you a story that when
Sure.
Weizmann was defense minister, Avital Sharansky was in his office asking to help free your current...
Yeah, on that he was outstanding.
He was tremendous. He picked the phone in front of me and called Kosygin.
Yes, he was tremendous.
He was unbelievable on that. And
So it's also...
he told me he was of Jewish extraction, whatever that meant. He said, my mother used to go to the synagogue and light candles.
Yes, he told me that he was on several occasions attacked in an anti-Semitic manner. He told me that, for example, at the debates of the party, people stood up and shouted at him. He says, what do you think? It's a kibbutz here.
You had 4 good years. You think that any relationship to those 4 good years has to do with the collapse of the Soviet Union?
I can't know. I mean,
Syria was a little bit deflated.
look, the fact that Soviet Union has collapsed, the United States remained the only superpower, opened a window of opportunity for peace all over the world, not only here. I wish it would remain, but I know it's not the case. In another 5 to 10 years, we shall see again 5 or 6 superpowers, and we shall see a different world.
5 or 6?
Yes,
Name them.
the United States,
Right,
China,
right.
100%.
That's true.
United Europe, Japan, India, and maybe Russia. Look, Russia has 2 capacities that no other nation in the world has. Number 1, the capacity to suffer. They're a little bit like Jews, you know. Jews are never
Some are
happy.
both, Russian and Jewish.
They're never happy unless they're unhappy. Russian thinks that suffering is part of life. The second thing, they're used to sick leadership. Brezhnev was sick for a very long time, you know. Look at all the leaders after Stalin. Everybody was sick in his own way. Now again, Yeltsin is sick. But this is an interruption in the Russian history. Russian history will go well for the first time since Ivan the Terrible up to Stalin the Terrible. And now they will go over to a democratic system. It will take time. The communists kill the country from an ecological point of view. They make the people sick from a political point of view. But the Russians are basically very intelligent people. The great story about Russia is the contradiction between the intelligence of the people and the lack of intelligence of the system. Never did such an unintelligent system produce so many intelligent people as in Russia.
Which brings me to, what is the effect of the Russian emigration to Israel? We
Great.
have 500,000?
More.
More?
More.
Prime Minister Shamir, I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. He said this was the greatest accomplishment of his administration, that he brought 500,000 Russian refugees.
I saw now Gorbachev in San Diego. And he asked me, how did the Russian immigration vote in the last elections? I told him, well, not so good. Oh, he says, you have another issue to blame me. It wasn't Shamir who changed the Soviet Union, you know?
I believe that's true.
Yes. I think it was rather Gorbachev. And Shamir did a good job. I don't want to underrate him, but let's keep a sense of balance and a little bit of modesty.
By the way, it's interesting that Yitzhak Shamir said on my show that the Oslo Agreement should be voided. Now,
If Mr. Shamir could have stopped the turning of the world around the sun, he would gladly do it. I mean, he thinks all the movement in the world is a waste of energy. If you can to freeze the whole world, the whole movement, he would be a happy person. For good and for bad, whatever it is.
that's not life. That's not the way it runs. Which brings me to a very important topic. I had dinner the other night with a very famous singer of Israel who was a religious cantor, Dudu Fisher, and there were 3 people there from Petah Tikva families. That's interesting. And 2 of their sons were in Golani, and another one had 2 in paratroopers. When you talk to them about any accommodation with the Arabs or the Palestinians, they told me they can accept the fact that their kids might be killed and still save the land of Israel. I was shocked. For an American, I was really shocked because human life means a lot to us. And it was like the sacrifice of Isaac. Now, allegedly or believedly, maybe 20% of the population is like that. I understand that Bibi Netanyahu, who maybe would want to move forward with the Oslo agreements and maybe wants to do things, is blocked by a group of Uzi Landau and Benny Begin, who are really idealists in the way they think. It's my impression that maybe the only way that the country can move forward is a unity government. You think that's a possibility?
Right now, it's not an agenda. What we need is a united effort for peace. Look, what is government? Government is administrations. Administrations we have had already. I, for one, I don't miss the government. For peace, I would do everything.
You seem to be much freer now. It's like you can really say things that you couldn't do when you were prime minister. Maybe those roles are more important than being prime minister at times.
Well, you know, when you are prime minister, you have the instrumentation to make decisions. When you are out of the prime ministership, you have the instrumentation to think what should be done.
So what do you think should be done? Just go on with the peace process?
100%. It is an existential issue.
Are you nervous about the fate of Israel now, personally?
I'm not nervous, I'm worried.
Worried?
I'm not nervous. My nerves are too strong to make me nervous. But I'm worried, yes. I told you at the beginning, in 4 years' time, 5 years' time, we shall see more superpowers. The Arab-Israeli conflict was living on the world conflict. The end of the world, the Cold War for a while, enabled us to handle our own conflict, but it will be renewed, unfortunately. Then the Iranians will try to spread fundamentalism. They got now again in Afghanistan. Afghanistan became fundamentalistic. They may have it in other countries, oil-producing countries. They may have a nuclear bomb. And we have to think ahead. We cannot talk about the wars of yesterday, and we shouldn't talk about the peace of yesterday. We have to speak and do about the peace of tomorrow.
What do you think the role of the United States should be?
Look, the Americans basically are fair-minded. They did a wonderful job, really. You know, I know there's a lot of criticism here and there, but try to think about it. Here you have a superpower, 210 years old. They went to many wars, not for their own needs. The American boys were fighting in the First World War, Second World War. Many of them were killed, lost their lives. America won the war, conquered countries. You know, they didn't keep anything for themselves. Think about it. It's unprecedented in history. The United States conquered Japan. Japan won because the United States conquered them. They won democracy, they won freedom.
Same thing with the Marshall Plan.
The same thing with Germany and others. And here too, I think, although, you know, you can criticize here and criticize there and gossip here, it's not serious. Basically, the United States supports peace. She stood on the side of Israel, not all the time, or most of the time, when we were in danger, and now they stand on our side when peace is in danger. And I have full respect. You know, I'm too grown up to be impressed by another piece of gossip or rumor, but this said, but that said, but this said. It's unimportant. You should see the main causes of history the main movements. I am myself a great admirer of a French historian, the name of Fernandel Braudel. He says the real history is not a history of events, but a history of developments. For example, the minute they learned how to use the wind to move ships on the seas, is more important what was the length of the nose of Cleopatra. The nose of Cleopatra, really were grown-up people. But how to use a sail and a wind makes more history. And from that point of view, I think one has to follow developments and not gossips.
I'm an economist by theory, basically, in history. My theory is that if Israel loses its prestige, investment will go down, tourism will go down, your economics will fall.
Right.
Will that theory work here too? People,
yes, 100%.
If the baby doesn't have milk and doesn't have a roof, everybody gets upset.
Well, they will have milk, but skim milk.
Now, I said this to the group Friday night when I had dinner, and they said right away they thought God would become the supermarket and he would take care of them, but I don't think that's very realistic.
Well, you should have another Friday night in a different group. Don't take this group as representing Israel. For whom did they vote, by the way? They were Likudniks?
They were Likud.
Okay, so...
The question is that you have many different societies now in Israel, is it not true, Shimon?
Yes, you do too in America. America,
But we're not identified, we're pluralistic.
No, the problem is different. The American Constitution is great because it is based on tolerance. Only tolerance permits pluralism to coexist. We have pluralism, but we don't have enough tolerance. What we need is tolerance. The essence of democracy is made of 2 points. One is that everybody has the right to be equal, and the second is that everybody has the equal right to be different.
True.
But you have to organize the differences, not only the equality. And the greatness of the American Constitution, as I have said, is the introduction of tolerance as a major foundation of the American life.
Why does Israel not have a constitution?
Because Ben-Gurion was afraid that in the age of the ingathering of exiles, some of them may introduce in the constitution elements that future generations will not agree, including the religious parties. You see, America was a revolt, not an agreement.
Right.
Israel is an agreement, not a revolt. America is the legitimate daughter of Europe. A group of intellectuals from Europe came and said, old Europe, they spoiled our lives with churches and intolerance and hatred and discrimination. Let's build a new Europe, a new Amsterdam, as they called New York. And they wrote a right constitution, a constitution of revolt. Would Israel write a constitution of consent? We would have disagreements. Because it wouldn't be consent. It would be no compromises here. It would be a coalition of ideas.
Right.
You can have a coalition of parties, provided that the foundation of this coalition is tolerance.
Did you discuss this issue with Ben-Gurion? I mean, was this his reasoning?
Yes.
All right. So Aaron Barak, who is the Chief Justice of your Supreme Court, gives a few rulings out which is civil rights, human rights, and right away he needs protection.
He's a great man. Look, every person who wants to change needs protection. I regret it. But only conservative people who do nothing are secure. And Aaron Barak is an outstanding jurist, and is courageous, and is brilliant.
You've been around the block a lot. How do you coincide or bring together, let's say, religious law and the jurisprudence? You're probably one of the few who can answer the question.
Look, Religious law is not the problem. The problem is the institutions of justice. Can you have two? Or can you have one? Can you have the institution, which is the Supreme Court and the courts of the state? Or can you have a Supreme Rabbinate? That is the real problem. We shall not give the Rabbinate the supremacy of our democracy. No chance whatsoever. Rabbinate is a matter of volunteers. The Supreme Court is a matter of law. This is the difference. Because even among rabbinites, we have different. You have the Lubavitcher, and you have the conservative. And some people say that the Messiah already arrived. So he's dead, but he's alive. So it doesn't make any sense. The greatest diplomat the Jewish people have ever had is the Messiah. The reason why he's so great because he never came. And we're still expecting him. And we're still looking forward. And we're still hoping. But it must be a clear distinction. The law of the land is a law. The religious of a person is his choice. We cannot impose religion or anti-religion feelings.
Shimon, always a pleasure. In your book, you talk about the fact that they called you from the kibbutz to go down and see Ben Gurion. That changed your life around, right?
Yes.
If that didn't happen, you'd be an agrarian today?
I would be a great shepherd.
There you have it.
And they would be elected by all the cows.
There you have it, a one-on-one intimate conversation with Shimon Pers. Fascinating. This will be, for historical purpose, this tape will live forever.